to another edition of On the Rise here on AM 1410 WRMN. Be jumping in here shortly, so stay tuned. Listening to AM 1410 WRMN, Talk of the Town, right here live from Studio 14.
Is diabetes keeping you from enjoying life's special moments? At US Med, we understand the challenges you face, and we're here to help.
With US Med, I can finally manage my diabetes without it managing me.
US Med offers a wide range of services to simplify your diabetes care. Personalized care plans, convenient access to cutting-edge diabetes tech, and knowledgeable support. Plus, we'll check your insurance so your diabetes care may be covered at little or no cost to you.
With US Med, I feel confident and control of my diabetes. I can finally live my life to the fullest.
Don't let diabetes hold you back. Choose US Med and experience better birthdays, better adventures, better anniversaries, and better everything. Call now. US Med. Better service, better care. 800-785-1673. 800-785-1673. 800-785-1673. That's 800-785-1673.
Looking to buy or sell a home in Chicagoland? Need trusted legal help with real estate, evictions, or estate planning? Turn to Guthrie & Brady, the happy lawyers serving the greater Chicago area since 1965. With over 50 years of experience, they handle titles and deeds, foreclosures, landlord-tenant issues, wills, trusts, and more. Appointments available evenings or weekends at their Roselle office or right in your home. Call Guthrie & Brady now at 847-524-1215. That's 847-524-1215. Or visit gnblegal.com. Guthrie & Brady, personal, professional, affordable legal services for all of Chicagoland. The happy lawyers since 1965. That's gnblegal.com. Or 847-524-1215. Guthrie & Brady, trusted legal help made easy, fast, affordable, and experienced. Call today.
Businesses come in all shapes and sizes. Integrity doesn't. For more than a century, the Better Business Bureau has set the standards for how businesses should operate honestly and ethically. So when you're looking for a business you can trust, check to see who's BBB accredited and who isn't. Always choose the Better Business. Look for the BBB seal because it's looking out for you. That's why it's the sign of a better business. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
Your kids could get free or low-cost health coverage from Medicaid or CHIP. Even if you've applied before, they may be eligible now. Kids up to age 19 are covered for checkups, vaccines, dentist visits, hospital care, and more. And if they already have Medicaid or CHIP, remember to renew every year. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
They were best friends, inseparable, in fact, until the day Miguel died. Every day his friend visited Miguel's grave. Rain, wind, weekends, holidays, every day. Miguel's closest friend, Capitan, his German Shepherd, is a symbol of loyalty to which we can all aspire. Loyalty. Pass it on from passiton.com.
When your car needs trusted care, think All Around Auto Body in Schaumburg. Family owned for over 30 years, they deliver high-quality collision repair and dependable service from start to finish. Call 847-352-3825. They're located at 501 Morse Avenue in Unit D. Get your vehicle back in shape with the experts who care. All Around Auto Body, where your car is treated like family. Call 847-352-3825 today. Proud sponsors of America's First Responders Fest.
Welcome into AM 1410 WRMN. You're listening to On the Rise. Mike Napolitano here, jumping in at the 10:30 hour to give you all of the information from this past week in Chicago sports and more. If you want to be a part of the conversation, feel free to jump on in on the phone lines. That's 847-931-1410, 847-931-1410. Or you can join the text line. That's 505-926-1410. 505-926-1410. Of course, we're also on YouTube, so you can jump in the chat on YouTube as well. I'll be monitoring that as we go along here. But we got to start out with the Chicago Bears as always. And as always, it's winning ugly for this Chicago Bears team. Oh, boy. Yeah, not what you want to see again from this Bears team. We were talking about it last week about how you need a dominant win over the Vikings. 19-7, where you give Minnesota 14 points in the fourth quarter, is not a dominant win. That's a, oh, shoot, we forgot we're giving this team a comeback. We better kick it into full gear and still win this game. Minnesota goes up by a field goal in the first quarter, but the Bears respond with 10 points in the second quarter before halftime. That would be a Kyle Monangai 1-yard rush for a touchdown. Cairo Santos nets the extra point, and then the 38-yard field goal from Cairo Santos with just a minute 34 on the clock. And the Bears have a commanding one-score lead. They added to that with 2 field goals in the third quarter, a Cairo Santos 54-yarder, and then a Cairo Santos 33-yarder. And that would give the Bears a 16-3 lead with only a quarter to go. And you would think that'll do it. However, if you were thinking that, you haven't watched this Bears team for the entire season long. Jordan Mason, a 16-yard rush, followed by Jordan Addison, the Jordans for the Vikings, a 15-yard pass from J.J. McCarthy. And next thing you know, Minnesota regains the lead 17-16. And with no time left on the clock, Cairo Santos, a 48-yard field goal to put the Bears back on top to win this game 19-17. Winning ugly. That's what they've been doing. Gosh, how many weeks in a row has it been? Oh my goodness. If they're not winning ugly, they're losing ugly. It's a 3-game win streak, that's for sure, for the Bears. So 3 weeks in a row, Bears get the W. It was winning ugly against the Giants. It was winning ugly against the Bengals. You'll remember those last 2 minutes. They did not get the job done against the Ravens. That was losing ugly because, as we were talking about a couple weeks ago, all you needed were 2 touchdowns rather than 2 field goals in that first quarter, and you might have had the Ravens at the end of that game. Still would have been kind of losing ugly. I think that the last game that I can remember that the Bears didn't have drama was against the Saints, but they were even down in that game for time being in there. A 25-24 win against the Commanders, a 25-24 win against the Raiders. That was that crazy kick at the end of the game as well. So pretty much every single one of the Bears wins this year, except for that Cowboys win that got them started off, has been, yeah. Which is why I see people are saying, okay, this is a 7-3 team, but are they really? Listen, as a Chicagoan and as a Bears fan, the Chicago Bears are first in a very tough NFC North division. We're going to take it. We're going to take the wins where we can get them from this Bears team. However, I see what people are saying where you just look at paper and it doesn't tell the whole story unless you dive a little bit deeper. Of course, you know the Bears went 0-2 to start the season, but then they rattle off 4 wins in a row. That loss to the Ravens and then 3 more wins here, sitting at 7-3. But the majority of the tough games and I'll say the divisional games are coming up. I mean, you just had this one against the Vikings, and you squeak out a win after losing to the Vikings to open up the season on that Monday Night Football. Once again, a comeback debacle. You let J.J. McCarthy run the show in the second half. So you split against the Vikings. You had a painful loss against the Lions, and luckily you don't have to see the Lions until the end of the season. You're going to see the Green Bay Packers twice within 2 to 3 weeks coming up. But before we jump right back into divisional games, you're going to have to face the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles. That is going to be a big test. Nick Johnston was talking about it last week, how that could very well be the test of the season for the Bears. That is make or break. Can you survive with playoff teams? Because I'll be honest with you, you look back at this Bears schedule, the only playoff team that I see in here is the Lions. The Ravens have had an abysmal season. The Bengals, should be a playoff team right now, but should and are two very different scenarios, two very different things. We're talking the Bengals defense last year kept them out of the playoffs despite Joe Burrow absolutely shattering records, and that offense should have put them in the playoffs, but it didn't. And now this year you don't have Joe Burrow. He's injured. The Vikings are not a playoff team. Let's be honest. They were a maybe. They were a wild card coming into the season. You could kind of see anybody from this NFC North making the playoffs. But if you had to take one team to miss playoffs, it'd be the team that's starting a rookie quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. And that's no shade on J.J. McCarthy. That's just he needs the time and the experience to really become the quarterback that everybody thinks he's going to be. And last year's injury that kept him out the entire season, that didn't help. So, we've got a long list of teams here that aren't really playoff contenders. You look at the Commanders. That was about the only team that the Bears played that had a playoff berth last year. Now they're 3-8. So really, I don't see anywhere where this Bears team has matched up against playoff competition, or at least a team that they may have to see in the postseason until we get to this back half of the schedule. Before I even get to the Eagles, though, another test for the Bears, and Nick Johnston, we were talking about this last week. He doesn't think that this is the absolute test for the Bears. I think this is still going to be a little bit of a test this week. Tomorrow at noon on CBS, the Bears will be taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 6-4. They're 2-2 on the road. Bears are 3-1 at home. So fairly close as far as these two teams go. The matchup predictor has the Bears winning 51%. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they are sitting at 48.6%. So there's a little gray area for them to tie here. But it's all going to come down to, does Aaron Rodgers play? I know we were talking about the Green Bay Packers. The Bears are going to have to see them twice coming up. And anytime the Bears hear the word Packers, they should think about how Aaron Rodgers, quote unquote, owns this franchise. And you look at the numbers, and he does. He is coming off of a wrist injury, so he is uncertain. He's questionable for tomorrow. He's done fairly well with this Steelers team so far this year. 19 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Caleb Williams, fewer touchdowns and fewer interceptions. So 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions for Williams. Rodgers, 192 completions of 289 attempts. Caleb Williams, 194 completions out of 325 attempts. So this is a case of more touchdowns for Rodgers, but fewer touchdowns for Caleb Williams. More completions for Williams, but also more attempts. So it's not really a proper judge just looking at the quarterbacks, but whether or not Aaron Rodgers plays tomorrow is going to be make or break for this Steelers team. There's a lot of people saying that he will play. This is his possible last chance to play the Chicago Bears before his speculated retirement after this season. And it's not like he still plays in the NFC North, so he's not going to get a second shot at the Bears again. Now, Aaron Rodgers is probably sitting there going, I have nothing to prove to this Bears team. If I don't play, who cares? I still own them. I'll keep my record against them pretty much intact. But I don't know. There also might be a glory aspect to it where it's, I have a wrist injury and I'm still going to try to annihilate the Bears. This is a much different Bears team than Rodgers is used to seeing. But you look at this Pittsburgh Steelers team, 6-4, they're first in the AFC North. If you would have told me at the start of the season that the Bears and the Steelers were going to play against each other this late in the season, we're talking, this is week 11? Week 12, excuse me, because there was that bye week in there. And you're telling me that going into week 11, the Bears and the Steelers were going to be first in their respective divisions, NFC North and AFC North? I don't know if I would have believed you on that. I don't think I would have had that on the bingo card for sure. But, I mean, let's face it. The Bears, they're going to be playing, at least they should be playing this game like it's a divisional game if Aaron Rodgers is in. Because if you play for the Bears currently, you know what this means to Bears fans to beat Aaron Rodgers. Or just to yourself, you're going up against an absolute legend of the game, Aaron Rodgers. You're gonna wanna show out. So, Bears, Steelers tomorrow at noon. You could also find it right here on AM 1410 WRMN. This is the home of the Chicago Bears all season long. You can get all of your games right here on the radio if you just tune the dial to 1410. WRMN is your home for the 2025-26 Chicago Bears. I'm predicting a Bears win, but once again, it's not going to be an easy one. Once again, it is going to be a Bears. They squeak this one out. They, win ugly. It's going to come down to kickers. It's going to come down to Cairo Santos making or breaking this team. And honestly, he hasn't been as good as he has been in previous seasons. Let's just face the facts. Cairo Santos has been a little bit shakier this year. Makes you reminisce about the Robbie Gould days and wish he was playing in this era with this Bears team. And then I think you'd be a much more well-rounded team. And, as the Bears, you've brought in a couple other options when it comes to kickers, but you're not really going to stray away from Cairo Santos after, what he did last year and what he still continues to do when he is at his best this year. You really don't have another solid option. You have Torrey Taylor. He's your punter. You're not really going to throw him in as kicker. But yeah, so the Bears offense needs to step up instead. Let's dive into this offense, and we'll get to the defense. Trust me. This Bears offense has been mediocre at best. Despite sitting at 7-3, they've had their flashes. Don't get me wrong. But the inconsistencies, the youth is still showing. It's still there. You've got Caleb Williams, who has looked better as of late. However, still taking way too much time. And I know I've talked about this in previous weeks, so I'm going to sound like a broken record, but way too much time in the pocket. He still thinks he's playing for California, USC. I think he's sitting there thinking that his offensive line is going to give him the time and the space for him to find receivers. Part of this too, and I'm going to get into the receivers, is those receivers not getting open. I don't know what that is, but I'm sure he's finding them and they're just not open. But you have to make quicker decisions with the ball, especially late in drives, late in games. I'm talking third down, going into fourth down, sometimes even second down. I mean, I see Caleb Williams throw the ball away a lot more than he really should. And honestly, there are times where I think he could just run it himself. We saw it 2 weeks ago when he ran one in to the end zone towards the end of the game to give the Bears the win over the Giants. To me, it has to be better all around. And for Caleb Williams to think that his offensive line is going to give him the time and the space to do that, did you not see what happened to you last year? Last season, you got rocked, absolutely rocked, because you had no time in the pocket. So don't be too comfortable. Just because you got a little bit more time this year doesn't mean you can just sit back and become comfortable. It's not going to get much better, I don't think, with this offensive line. So you have what you have, and you go forward with it. But we're talking, it's got to be better all around. Caleb's got to find people better. Wide receivers got to find themselves in open spots a lot better, a lot more frequently. I don't know if it's necessarily the play calling. I have faith in Ben Johnson. I think he has revitalized this offense. I think that there is some benefit to having him, of course, as head coach, and he's doing great things, but I just, this is not, and don't get me wrong, this Bears team, I think, is, in my eyes, ahead of expectations. For some people, they're so starved for Bears success and Bears football that they think that this team is behind. I see where you restarted your quarterback clock 2 years ago. You didn't have the right coaching. So this year you have the right coaching. You perhaps have the right quarterback. You move forward from here. This is your start, not last year. This is your start. So if you have a 7-3 record, maybe you finish 10-7, maybe you finish 9-8 like I predicted, and you get into the playoffs and you do absolutely nothing. That's where I think this Bears team should be right now. I think that's on pace. You can't expect much more from a team that hasn't been to the playoffs in previous years. So no matter how good that regular season record looks, there's still an aspect of, there's just not enough playoff experience or veteran leadership maybe on this team to carry them in a postseason like that. They've got to earn and learn their way through NFL postseason, especially because NFL postseason is like no other postseason. It's one and done. There's no 7-game series. There's no 5-game series. There's no wild card rounds. It's, you get in, you have to come ready to play every single game. And it comes just down to just a couple different plays. You could treat each quarter like a different game, but the way that's been going for the Bears this year hasn't looked great during the regular season, so I can't imagine it would be great in the postseason. We're talking, not to foreshadow, but you could possibly see this Bears team scoring all their points in the first half and then falling apart in the second half. And I hope that's not foreshadowing, but if it's gone the way it's gone for pretty much every single game this year, there's going to be a scramble in the fourth quarter, and it's going to be whether or not Caleb Williams and that offense or the special teams kicking a field goal can come up in a big moment. And that's not really what you want to rely on. You want to have a little bit more commanding of a victory, especially when it comes to postseason time. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Let's take it week by week, game by game. Let's get a win over the Pittsburgh Steelers and see what that does. As far as your other injuries go, Cameron Hayward for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's questionable with an ankle injury. Darius Slay has a concussion, so he's questionable. And then Alex Higsmith, doubtful. He's got a pectoral injury. You've also got Aaron Rodgers' wrist, as I mentioned. All 4 of them slated to possibly return tomorrow. So there might not be a huge, long laundry list for the Pittsburgh Steelers as far as injuries go, other than Corey Trice Jr., who will be out for the remainder of the season. He is their center back. Theo Benedict is questionable for the Bears. He's got a quadriceps injury. That's a November 23rd return. That is also the case for Kyler Gordon. He's got a calf injury. Jaquan Brisker, a shoulder injury. And Jalen Johnson, a groin injury. Now, Theo Benedict and Jaquan Brisker are questionable. Kyler Gordon and Jalen Johnson are both listed as full-on IR. So those might not be returns as of tomorrow. We shall see. Noah Sewell is out with his elbow injury. He won't be back until the 28th of this month. So that is the big injuries listed for this Chicago Bears team. I don't think it's enough for you to be able to make injuries an excuse, especially if that Aaron Rodgers injury stays on the board. But I think you've got a little bit of back and forth when it comes to this matchup, as that matchup predictor had going. I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think if Aaron Rodgers is in, you're going to see him kind of look like Aaron Rodgers of old. There might be that rejuvenating, revitalizing factor of him playing a rival of his, even if it isn't as big of a game for the Steelers team or organization as a whole. But at the same time, you want to be 7-4 and not 6-5 if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially in a tough AFC North. Well, or should be tough AFC North. When you look at their division, we were talking about 2 teams that the Bears have already played this year in Baltimore and Cincinnati. Baltimore is sitting at 5-5. They're 500. Now, they had the Lamar Jackson injury. We still saw the Bears fall to Baltimore. I think Baltimore still finds a way to get into the playoffs. If they're sitting at 500 now and they were able to climb up from where they were, I believe they were at 1-4 or 1-5. That's a good sign for the Ravens. But you look at Cincinnati without Joe Burrow, 3-7. I don't think there's much hope for them throughout the rest of the season. And then, of course, the Cleveland Browns. It has been a carousel of quarterbacks out in Cleveland, and I don't think it's going to get much better for them. So I don't see the Browns climbing up from 2-8. But that's good for the Bears because the Browns are the team that separates them from those two Packers matchups. So even if you lose a game to the Packers, maybe you get a little bit of a boost beating the Browns, but you still got to beat who's in front of you and then go from there. You can't just say, everything is going to be easy when we play the Browns, so let's get a gimme. No, when you're the Bears, you have to take everything that you can get. When you're any Chicago team, you got to take anything you can get. And we're going to get into a team in just a moment that really didn't do that when it came to, beating a team at the bottom of the standings. And hint, hint, I'm repping them today. But yeah, we'll get into hockey in just a moment. It hasn't been too great as of late for this Blackhawks team. But going back to the Bears, the Browns game, that splits your two matchups with the Packers. For the rest of the season, you've got a noon matchup against the Steelers tomorrow. Like I said, you have a 2 p.m. matchup on Black Friday against the Eagles, the defending champs. That's on Prime Video. You could also listen along right here on AM 1410 WRMN to all of these remaining games. The Packers, a 3:25 p.m. game on December 7th on Fox. And you've got a noon matchup with the Browns on the 14th of December on Fox. Then that second Packers game still does not have a time slot. That's to be determined. That might come down to some divisional matchup there as far as seeding for the playoffs. So the Packers are currently sitting at 6-3-1. One tie with that goes back to their game against the Dallas Cowboys. One tie is separating them from being up at the top of the division with the Bears at 7-3. Otherwise, they have 240 points for. They have only given up 196 points against. So they have a few fewer points than the Bears, who are sitting at 258. But the Bears have given up a lot of points. In fact, the Bears have given up more points than they have scored. They have 264 points against. And the Green Bay Packers, like I said, only 196. They have the fewest points against in the division. And quite frankly, when you look at points against for the entire conference, the NFC, I believe, yes, only the Los Angeles Rams and the Seattle Seahawks have given up fewer points than the Green Bay Packers. Yeah, so they don't surrender a whole lot. When you look at the AFC side of things, it's Kansas City, the Chiefs. I don't think there's much of a surprise there other than their actual record, which is sitting at 5-5, but they may just coast for the regular season enough to get into the playoffs. 181 points against. And then the Denver Broncos surprising people with 192. Houston Texans 182. So a couple of ones in the AFC conference. As far as the NFC conference, it looks like that Green Bay Packers team is quietly hungry to take this division. So we'll see if the Bears can stay atop. This week would be a huge marker for that. So Bears and Steelers, noon tomorrow. You can listen right here on AM 1410 WRMN, your home for Chicago Bears football all season long. This is the Talk of the Town live from Studio 14. If you want to call in, 847-931-1410 or text 505-926-1410 to join the conversation on there or in the YouTube chat. You're listening to On the Rise, myself, Mike Napolitano, right here as part of our River Media Network Sports Center.
Elgin isn't just a city. It's a community built on connection, innovation, and opportunity. And at the heart of it all is the Elgin Chamber of Commerce. For over a century, the Elgin Chamber has helped local businesses grow, connecting entrepreneurs, advocating for progress, and inspiring the leaders of tomorrow. Whether you're a new business just starting out or an established company looking to expand, the Elgin Chamber is your partner for success. Join a powerful network of leaders making a difference in our community every day. Together, We're shaping the future of Elgin, one connection at a time. Elgin Area Chamber of Commerce, where business and community grow together. Call now, 847-741-5660, or go to info@elginchamber.com. Contact Carol Gieske.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN AM 1410, Elgin time, 11 o'clock.
If you turned 65 recently like me, it's important you find a Medicare Advantage plan that gives you the coverage you're looking for. But finding one can be difficult. The best thing I did, and I suggest you do the same, is call a licensed insurance agent and let them walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There are so many benefits you have access to, so make the call now and let the representatives explain everything to you. Our licensed insurance agents can offer you a variety of Medicare Advantage plans. Plus, the call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation to enroll. We're here to make it easy for you to select a Medicare Advantage plan that may work for your needs. Finding a Medicare Advantage plan can be easy if you do what I did. Make a quick call right now to learn more. Thank you.
800-433-3082. 800-433-3082. 800-433-3082. That's 800-433-3082.
Welcome back to AM 1410 WRMN's On the Rise, a part of our River Media Network Sports Sundays. Excuse me, Sports Saturdays. Losing track of my days here. I'm already ready for Bears football. You can join the conversation by calling in at 847-931-1410, 847-931-1410, or you could text in at 505-926-1410, 505-926-1410. You can also join the chat on YouTube. We are streaming it live on there as well. See your comments coming in. But let's get into a little bit of the hockey talk that we have for this week, and there is some good followed by some bad. First and foremost, we talked to Dana Gray of the Rockford Ice Hogs last weekend, kind of talking AHL side of things. Since then, it hasn't been a great go for the Rockford Ice Hogs. They lost that Hockey Fights Cancer night game last Saturday, a 5-2 loss to the Manitoba Moose, followed by a 3-2 shootout loss, so at least securing a point, but that was on Sunday. And they went for their Wet Your Whistle Wednesday against the pretty much undefeated Grand Rapids Griffins. That's our Sophia Blackburn, our very own Sophia Blackburn's Griffins, who are leading the AHL Central Division with 11 wins, 1 loss, and 1 shootout loss. They played 13 games, and they're practically undefeated, 23 points out of a possible 26 that they could have secured right there. So kudos to the Griffins. Also, they're on a streak as of right now. They actually they did lose their last game, but they had a 3-game win streak going. They're 5-0-0 on the road. If you could play on the road in this AHL, that's very impressive. They're also 6-1-0 at home. I've got 51 goals for and only 27 goals against. Meanwhile, Rockford, they're sitting in 4th in the division. They have played 18 games. So the Griffins also have games in hand on a couple of these teams that are sitting below them. Milwaukee's sitting in 2nd with also 13 games played. But the Manitoba Moose, the Ice Hogs, the Wolves, the Wild, and the Stars have all played more games than the Griffins and the Admirals. So the Admirals and the Griffins, who are in the 1 and 2 spots in this Central Division, have games in hand on everybody. I read that off in order of the division right there. You could check if you don't believe me, but the Ice Hogs sitting in 4th. They are 8-1-1 with 18 points in 18 games played. That's not terrible. They have 8 regulation or overtime wins. They're 2-5-0 at home, so they need to get a better home record. They're also 6-3-1 on the road. So they've played well on the road, just as the Griffins have, but that home record, they got to boost up. Dalton Cooper and I saw them in their opening night, their home opener back at the start of October, and they did squeak out the win in an overtime fashion. Samuel Sauvois putting in that one, but other than that, there hasn't been a whole lot of good things going on for this Blackhawks affiliate. A 4-3 overtime win, though, last night against the Stars, which was huge. That was another opportunity for the Rockford Ice Hogs to get back into the win column, and they did on the road. So that was crucial for them to get the win in that one. Like I said, a 4-3 victory. When we take a look at what happened in that game, the overtime winner was scored by Aiden Thompson. So Nolan Allen and Brett Sini get the assists on that one, but you also had goals in the third period, 3 of them from Rockford to get back into this one. 2 from Nick Lardis, who has not stopped what he was doing in the OHL last year. That is a prospect name that you're going to want to keep on your radar for the actual Blackhawks when we talk about guys that are lighting up leagues. Well, he did it in the OHL. People were concerned as to how it was going to carry over after leaving Brantford to come to the AHL and play for Rockford. Nick Lardis has not skipped a beat. He's got 7 goals on the season. Nolan Allen has been great as well. We saw a little bit of him at the NHL level last year. He gets his first in the third period to help the Rockford Ice Hogs take the lead, but they lost that lead with just about 1:30 to go, which led them to overtime, but they get the job done there as well this time. So a 4-3 victory for your Ice Hogs as they sneak that one out of the Stars. They will play the Stars again tonight. That's the Texas Stars, 7 p.m. puck drop. That's out in Texas. It'll be a home holiday week for the Ice Hogs next week. You'll get another matchup, actually the first matchup against the Chicago Wolves this year, if I'm not mistaken. I don't believe these two squared off in October. Let me just double check that real quick. But the Wolves will head up to the BMO Center for a Wet Your Whistle Wednesday. It'll be a 7 p.m. puck drop on Wednesday the 26th. So it's for most, I'll say it, it's Blackout Wednesday. You can Wet Your Whistle Wednesday up in Rockford. I believe that's a special drink promotion there for the Rockford Ice Hogs faithful, but also any Wolves faithful looking to make the trip up to Rockford. And they did that last year during the season. Actually, these two teams have faced each other. Oh, gee, I missed 3 games here. The Wolves went. This will be their first time in Rockford. That's what it is. They did play 3 games back in October at the Allstate Arena. That was a 3-2 overtime victory for the. Oh, and how could I forget? There was that Michigan goal that the Wolves scored. A 3-2 overtime victory for the Ice Hogs on October 18th. Then on the 19th, the Wolves got the better of them, a 6-5 victory with that Michigan goal that I was talking about, that lacrosse-style goal. And then it was a 6-1 victory for the Rockford Ice Hogs on the 28th of October. So these two teams have seen each other 3 times. It'll be their 4th meeting other than the preseason. And this will be a real test for the Wolves going up to Rockford. When we look at the Wolves side of things, since we also cover the Chicago Wolves here at AM 1410 WRMN, they've had a little bit better of a go as of late, but they've had to face some tough teams. They did defeat Grand Rapids in a shootout back on November 9th. That was a 4-3 victory for Chicago, but then they play the other team atop the Central Division, the Milwaukee Admirals. That was an overtime 4-3 loss. So a little bit of deja vu scoreline-wise and extra time. Regulation wasn't enough, but this time not a shootout. They do get the win last Saturday over the Cleveland Monsters, 3-2, but then a 3-2 win for the Cleveland Monsters in overtime on Sunday. So a little bit of back and forth for the Wolves. They did fall to the Manitoba Moose on Thursday. That was a 2-1 final. They've got, of course, another game coming up against Manitoba tonight. Well, actually, this afternoon. It's a 2 p.m. start time, 2 p.m. puck drop. And then it'll be Wednesday, like I said, against Rockford in Rockford. The Wolves are on the road in Manitoba. Then again, actually, the first 2 games here in Manitoba. Then they play Rockford in Rockford. Then they go right back to Manitoba. So a little bit of a tough schedule for this Wolves team. Those will be 2 p.m. start times as well on Saturday, November 29th, and Sunday, November 30th. So a tough schedule coming up for the Wolves. As for the Rockford Ice Hogs, the schedule, as I was saying, leads off with the Wolves. Then they'll host the Admirals on Friday night. That is a 7 p.m. puck drop. There is a local artist hat giveaway that evening for the fans. And then it'll be on the road in Milwaukee on the 29th. So right after Black Friday, it'll be a Saturday matchup with the Admirals at 6 p.m. up in Milwaukee for the Ice Hogs. But I kind of led off with the Blackhawks and the NHL side of things before we transitioned and pivoted over to the Rockford side of things. So let's go back into NHL talk and let's really dissect what is going on with this Blackhawks team, because it has been up and down. Last Saturday, the Blackhawks get a much-needed victory over the Toronto Maple Leafs. Maple Leafs have been struggling, especially without Austin Matthews, who's been injured. They are 8-9-2 after this one. Blackhawks improved to 9-5-4 after sneaking out a 3-2 victory. He had a goal from Ryan Green. That's his second of his NHL career. Assists from Levshunov and Kaiser to get the scoring started. But right at the end of the first period with less than a minute left, Hawks like to do those, give up those daggers like that. Nicholas Robertson, his fifth of the season, assisted by John Tavares, evens this game at 1. Then Morgan Riley, halfway through the second period, opens up the lead for Toronto with assists from Oliver Ekman-Larsson and William Nylander. And then in the third period, just when you thought all hope was lost, a beautiful setup from Frank Nazar and a even nicer toe drag from Teuvo Teravainen to sneak that one in on a partial breakaway. He had to beat one with the toe drag, and then he was clean cut to the net from the slot. Oliver Moore gets an assist on that one as well. That's Teuvo's fourth goal of the season. That ties things at 2, and then it's Colton Dach with the game-winning goal, assisted by Louis Crevier and Ilya Mikheyev. Blackhawks knock off an original 6 rival in the Maple Leafs 3-2, and they get the week started out right, basically. Then you go ahead and you have a game Tuesday night against the Calgary Flames at home. I knew a lot of people in attendance for these last 2 games, so good for you because you saw the good 2 games of the week. But I'll tell you what, this Calgary Flames game, that was definitely one to go back and watch if you weren't there in person. Ryan Donato gets the scoring started. Louis Crevier and Oliver Moore get assists on that one. But then the whole story for the rest of the night was Connor Bedard. He scores his 11th of the year for Chicago to extend their lead to 2-0 against a struggling Calgary Flames team. They're 5-13-3 after this one, 2-9-1 on the road. Matt Coronado gets a power play goal to cut the lead in half, and Rasmus Andersson scores, and you think, uh-oh, what's going on with this Blackhawks team? Because they just gave up a 2-goal lead, the worst lead in hockey. But Connor Bedard says, hold on, I'm still on the ice. His 12th goal of the season, assisted by Ryan Green and Andrei Burakovsky. So he's got 2 on the night. Oliver Moore scores to make it 4-2 Blackhawks with an assist from Frank Nazar. That's Oliver Moore's second NHL goal. But to cap things off with the empty netter, Connor Bedard to conclude his hat trick. He nets all 3 go-ahead goals for the Blackhawks and a 5-2 victory for Chicago right there. Even Tommy Hawk went down and threw his hat on the ice. So that was fun to watch. And an electric crowd on a Tuesday night, a cold Tuesday night at the United Center, and the Blackhawks get the win. You saw the hats rain down on the ice for the 20-year-old. Connor Bedard has been absolutely lighting up this league. He is tied for 3rd in the league with points with 31. He's got 13 goals and 18 assists. He's keeping pace for the most part with some of the top scorers in this league, like I just rattled off there. He's leading in most of those, or close to the lead in most of those categories, but those other leaders are guys that have been there for a while. When you look at Connor McDavid and Nathan MacKinnon, but Connor Bedard was the first overall draft pick in 2023. First overall draft pick in 2024, Macklin Celebrini. And he is right above on those rankings as well. So when you look at it, the NHL is ushering in a new era here. We may have our next Sidney Crosby versus Alexander Ovechkin on our hands. Our next Nathan MacKinnon versus Connor McDavid. And I know that's crazy to say because both of those two are still basically leading the league. But the youth movement is here. When you look at leading in points, Nathan MacKinnon, 36 points leading Colorado. Connor McDavid, 32 points. And then who's tied for 31 points? Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini. Another thing to point out, all four of those gentlemen, Canadian. You know what's coming up in February in Milan, Italy? The Winter Olympics with hockey. We just saw how badly, I mean, it was close, but how badly Canada threw a dagger into the hearts of USA fans with that Connor McDavid overtime goal in the Four Nations face-off. And that was without Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini on that team. Canada is only getting better, and that is a scary, scary thought for pretty much everyone. Nathan MacKinnon leading in plus minus as well with plus 22. I mean, this guy is on pace to trounce records here in the NHL. He's got 16 goals through basically, 18 games? So that's pretty good, I would say. Connor Bedard sitting in fifth in goals with 13. But you look at Macklin Celebrini as far as points go, he's tied with Bedard. He's got 13 goals, just the same as Bedard, and 18 assists. So these two guys are identical. They are keeping pace. And why are you sitting here in the Chicagoland market and you're telling me you've never heard of Macklin Celebrini? Well, maybe you're just not tuned into the NHL as deeply. Or maybe it's just the fact that West Coast hockey, the San Jose Sharks, are not as televised, are not as talked about. So Macklin Celebrini could be putting that Sharks team back on the map. We're talking to the era of when you had Joe Thornton and Pavelski and a couple of other stalwarts there in San Jose that led them to one Stanley Cup. They fell short, of course, to Pittsburgh. And when we talk about Pittsburgh, the Penguins are having a rejuvenated year as well. Sidney Crosby looks like he is back to being Sidney Crosby. Everybody keeps calling him old, but he's still there. He's still around. Of getting Malkin still sitting high up in points. He leads his team with 23 points. And boy, oh boy, are those Penguins looking to do some damage in the East. The East is tough right now. There's a lot of teams that I think people thought were going to be sub 500, myself included, that are actually above 500 or even leading their division. Hint, hint, Boston. I don't know how Boston is doing what they're doing. You want to talk about guys that are lighting up the West Coast and not getting talked about? It's not just Macklin and Celebrini. How about the man who was drafted right after Connor Bedard, second overall in 2023 to the Ducks, Leo Carlsson for the Anaheim Ducks, playing under Joel Quenneville. That Ducks team, it looked as though if they were losing a guy like Trevor Zegras, that they may be going into another type of rebuild. A couple other departures there as well, but there is still a youth movement over in Anaheim, and the Ducks look decent. When you take a look at the actual standings, I've been kind of dancing around them for the most part. Boston leading the Atlantic with 26 points. Red Wings right behind them with 25. Surprising to see that Tampa Bay is down in third with 24 points. Not a huge difference there. They're also tied with the Ottawa Senators. We saw the Blackhawks face off against the Ottawa Senators and have some luck. But then, you go up against some teams like, the Florida Panthers, who are right below them, defending champs nonetheless, but right below them, and you can't get the job done. Blackhawks struggled against the Canadiens as well, but they beat the Maple Leafs. And rounding out that Atlantic division are the Buffalo Sabres, 8-9-4. They have 20 points. They are the fourth worst team in the league. And we're going to talk about just how bad it is to lose to them if you are the Chicago Blackhawks. So give me a second. We're getting to the bad news. There is some more good news, though. The Blackhawks, they're sitting in 5th in the Central Division in the Western Conference, 24 points. They're tied with the Winnipeg Jets right above them. So their former captain, Jonathan Toews, and the Winnipeg Jets sitting right above the Blackhawks. Winnipeg gave them a hard time back in October, but we'll get to see the return of Jonathan Toews in January 19th. Haha, funny how that worked out. January 19th will be when Toews makes his return to the UC with the Jets. So we'll see where the Blackhawks are sitting by then. American Thanksgiving coming up next week, and Dalton and I have talked about it on this show quite a bit. That is usually the benchmark as to, are you going to be a playoff team in this NHL, or are you looking to sell at the trade deadline? Blackhawks are kind of in, I don't want to say no man's land right now, but they're in a playoff spot. When you look at the wild card standings, the Blackhawks, they're tied with the Jets, but they're on the outside looking in. They had that first wild card spot as of the start of the week, but then 2 losses has dropped them down, and those 2 losses, not good ones. The Blackhawks fall to the Seattle Kraken on Thursday night as the first game of their back-to-back home and away, first back-to-back of the season. This was a game in which the refs absolutely screwed over this Blackhawks team. A soft hooking call when the Blackhawks had just given up the first goal against of the game. The Blackhawks had a 2-0 lead. Once again, a 2-0 lead, worst lead in hockey. And a soft hooking call. Next thing you know, the Blackhawks are shorthanded. They're letting in the game-tying goal to the Kraken. That was a tipped redirect in front by Shane Wright. But then Connor Bedard, on a breakaway, gets hooked. He's a superstar, folks. He knows when his hand is touched. You heard Jeff Blashill say his hand got touched. You heard the announcers say his hand got touched. He got hooked on that breakaway. His hand went up immediately. He still got a little bit of a shot off, but not as much as he would have if he was not hooked on the breakaway. His trajectory sent him and the defenseman on split sides of the net. So the defenseman that hooked him goes to, if you're looking at the net, to the right of Decord, and I almost said Jonathan Toews. Connor Bedard goes to the left side. Well, that just happened to be where the linesman was, on the left side. So as Connor Bedard is barking to the linesman, saying to the referee, saying, "Hey, I got hooked. I got slashed on the hand on this breakaway." Connor Bedard just happens to be going that way. So yes, he's yapping at the referee, and yes, he shouldn't do that. I understand, but you gotta call something right there. That's poor officiating. And his trajectory sends him right to the referee. So the referee thinks, oh, he's literally stopping his play to come and yell at me and make contact with me. I don't know if the contact had anything to do with it. I think he just didn't like the yapping. Something should have been extremely personal for the referee to issue Connor Bedard a misconduct penalty, because that's what happened. Instead of calling the penalty on the Seattle Kraken, they call the penalty on the Blackhawks, on Connor Bedard, for complaining that there wasn't a penalty that should have been called, that wasn't called. And next thing you know, the Blackhawks are shorthanded and giving up the go-ahead power play goal to Jaden Schwartz, and the Blackhawks lose. Unfreaking believable. That was ref ball right there. That's what that was. Ref ball at its finest, at its not finest for Chicago. That was terrible officiating. And you would have thought that the Blackhawks wanted to bounce back in the second game of their back-to-backs, especially playing the Buffalo Sabres. If you can hear the tone in my voice, it's not about to be good. I'm going to come back with that news and still some good news about the Chicago Blackhawks and their upcoming week here. We've got a little bit more hockey to talk about. We've got Steel Plus, we have Chicago Bulls and Windy City Bulls to talk about here right on AM 1410 WRMN. Maybe I have a couple baseball notes in here as well. But you're listening to AM 1410 WRMN's On the Rise, myself, Mike Napolitano.
If your idea of therapy involves a fishing rod, a tree stand, or a campfire, then you need American Outdoors Radio. Host John Cruz speaks your language, whether it's about the best lures, tracking game, or that one buddy who always forgets to bring the beer. John's got the tips to sharpen your aim, the hacks to pack lighter, and the stories to keep you entertained. Again, that's American Outdoor Radio with John Cruz. Saturdays at 7 a.m. on WRMN 1410. Or stream it at WRMN1410.com. Get ready to outfish, outhunt, and outcamp 'em all on American Outdoor Radio with John Cruz.
For nearly 50 years, the DuPage Senior Citizens Council and Kane Senior Council have been dedicated to serving seniors in DuPage and Kane counties. Established in 1975, the DuPage Senior Citizens Council is a volunteer-driven 501c3 non-for-profit organization committed to helping older adults live with dignity. From providing nutritious meals to offering support services, the Kane Senior Council is there every step of the way. With programs designed to enhance independence and quality of life, they're proud to make a difference in the lives of their senior neighbors. To learn more or to volunteer, visit them at 418B Airport Road in Elgin or head to their website at caneseniorcouncil.org. Give them a call at 630-338-0999. That's 630-338-0999. That's the Kane Senior Council, caring for seniors because they deserve to live with dignity and respect. Visit caneseniorcouncil.org or call 630-338-0999 today.
Real talent is defined by what people can do, not where they learn to do it. So by stopping at the education section of a resume, you might throw away the perfect hire. You might miss someone who has valuable skills to offer to help your business thrive right now and in the future. Because the truth is this: Skills First Hiring helps you see talent others miss, like more than 70 million stars, skilled through alternative routes. When you let their story unfold, you gain a competitive advantage, because hiring managers who start with skills are 60% more likely to find a successful hire. See the real person, complete. See what others miss. Hire skills first. Learn why it's a competitive advantage at tearthepaperceiling.org. Brought to you by Opportunity at Work and the Ad Council.
Start your weekend right with Dino's Night Out, Fridays from 2 to 4 p.m. on WRMN 1410 AM. Dino covers what's hot across the Fox Valley, from live shows to food fests and everything in between. Proudly sponsored by the legendary Arcada Theater at 105 East Main Street in St. Charles. Your home for unforgettable concerts, comedy, and more. Tune in on WRMN 1410 AM or stream at WRMN1410.com. Dino's Night Out, your guide to the weekend vibe.
What's the best way to get rid of a timeshare that you don't want? Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline. We're a group of attorneys that help customers legally exit their timeshares. It's an easy process. We guarantee results or you pay nothing. Exit your timeshare today. Call now.
800-890-5957. 800-890-5957. That's 800-890-5957.
Welcome back to AM 1410 WRMN. I am Mike Napolitano here on the Rise, one of your sports shows here at the prime hour here, 11:34 going into noon. on the Talk of the Town, AM 1410, as a part of our River Media Network Sports Saturdays. Right after this show, it'll be the 1 to 2 show, the Chief Guard of the Republic coming on right after us. But if you want to join the sports conversation in the last 30 minutes, you still have time to do so. 847-931-1410. 847-931-1410. I want to hear from you. What have you been most pleased about with Chicago sports? But what is something maybe that you are really looking to change? Because there's still work to be done here. There's no championships yet. We had the Chicago Fire fall short in the playoffs. We had the Chicago Stars not even make the playoffs this year after they snuck in last year. You had the Chicago Sky miss the playoffs. We'll get into basketball here in just a second on the men's side of things, both NBA and the G League. And then we've got hockey that is tempting us to want some playoff hockey, but I don't know if the Blackhawks are quite there yet. AHL may give us a little bit more promise there, but we need a deep run from one of our teams, whether that's the Chicago Wolves or the Rockford Ice Hogs. It wasn't super deep for either team last year, especially having to face off against each other in that opening play-in round. So it might be a little bit different going forward here. We covered AHL. We covered a little bit of NHL. We didn't quite finish our talks about the Chicago Blackhawks, but I don't even know if I really want to, because a terrible, terrible Buffalo Sabres team. Blackhawks are coming off of that ref puck loss the night before to the Seattle Kraken. That should not have been a loss on Thursday night. And you would think that the Blackhawks want to respond. The message coming from Jeff Blashill and some of the players in the locker room, especially Connor Bedard right after that, you would have thought that there would have been an answer back despite being a back-to-back nights worth of games. You would have thought, facing a terrible Buffalo Sabres team, the Blackhawks would have responded. Instead, they decide to give up 3 goals per period and only score 1 per period themselves. Yes, you heard that right. Buffalo outscored the Blackhawks 3-1 in the first, the second, and the third frames of last night's game. Josh Doan, son of Shane Doan, gets on the board with his 6th of the year, assisted by Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck. So the guys that you have to lock down for this Buffalo Sabres team, there's not a whole lot of them because they haven't done great this year. And you didn't do it on that first goal. Jason Zucker doubles the lead. Bowen Byram, okay, yet another guy in there. Even Jason Zucker you could throw in there. Rasmus Dahlin gets an assist. Alex Tuck, another assist. That's a power play goal for Byram. And next thing you know, it's 3-0 Sabres. Tyler Bertuzzi stops the bleeding a little bit for the Blackhawks with a goal at the very end of the first period. But then boom, boom, Ryan McLeod and Matthias Samuelsson, 2 goals within 8 seconds in the second period, makes it a 5-1 lead. Alex Vlasic gets the Blackhawks back on the board again late, but a 5-2 lead for Buffalo, and they would add to it with Josh Doan's second of the night, 6-2 going into the third period. Tyler Bertuzzi gets his second of the night on the power play that's assisted by Connor Bedard. He had the other assist on Bertuzzi's first. Frank Nazar factors into this one as well. So Bedard, a multi-point game, 2-point night. He's still on pace, but that only cuts the lead in half. 6-3 Buffalo is leading, and then Tage Thompson, Jack Quinn, and Jacob Bryson, just to add insult to injury. What in the world is going on in Blackhawks land right now? I mean, I understand that Arvid Soderblom was playing in this game because it was the back-to-backs, and you're not going to play Spencer Knight both nights. That's a lot for one goaltender, but 9 goals against on 30 shots, that's a 700 save percentage. 9 goals against, only 21 saves. Unacceptable. This is Arvid Soderblom of 2 years ago. This is Arvid Soderblom of last year that we're seeing in net right here. And he was playing much better this year. Not enough to be the starter over Spencer Knight. But man, oh man, was this a bad game. This is one that the Blackhawks have to just completely throw out the window. You weren't in the box too much either. Connor Bedard gets called for tripping. Of course, they convert on that one. Artem Levshunov high sticking against Jordan Greenway. But man, oh man, this is just unbelievable. Excuse me. There was the second penalty, the Artem Levshunov one that the Sabres capitalized on. You only give up the one power play goal and you earn one yourself, but 9 goals given up to the Buffalo Sabres, who are sitting at the absolute bottom of the Atlantic Division. No wonder you fell out of that second wild card spot. No wonder you're on the outside looking in. Whew. Man, terrible. You get out hit. You get outshot. You lost badly in the faceoffs, 59.3% going to the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, this is just unacceptable if you're the Blackhawks, and I can only imagine how badly Jeff Blashill and the coaching staff had to right that locker room after such an atrocious performance. Both nights, honestly. I mean, I understand you get screwed by the refs against Seattle, but in Buffalo, you can't come up with a win, especially when you score 3. You cannot give up 6 to Buffalo, let alone 9. You can't give up 5 to Buffalo, 4 to Buffalo if you want to be a contending team. Which doesn't make me feel too well going into tomorrow's matchup, a 6 p.m. puck drop on NHL Network against the Colorado Avalanche, a real team. Nathan MacKinnon, like I was saying before the break, leading the league in most stat categories. He is absolutely buzzing, more than a point per game player, almost a goal per game player right now, which is similar to what he did last year numbers-wise. But that'll be a real test for this Blackhawks team tomorrow night at home against Colorado. It'll also be a Dennis Savard bobblehead giveaway. And then Wednesday, November 26th, at home against Minnesota, 7:30 p.m. puck drop on ESPN and Hulu. Friday, November 28th, this is where we get to the good news. And I don't know if this is going to be a win or not. Of course, I can't predict the future. But Friday is Blackout Friday. Well, the Blackhawks decided that they were going to celebrate and be festive. And by that, I mean they're back, ladies and gentlemen. We knew it was going to happen. Anybody tuned into the team for quite a bit knew that it was coming. It is officially the case. The all-black jerseys are back for the Chicago Blackhawks, the ones that they wore back in the 2010 era, all the way dating back to 1993. The black jerseys with still the Blackhawk head on them. The ones that you saw Chris Chelios, even a little bit Dennis Savard, and then also you saw Jeremy Roenick, Patrick Sharp, Patrick Kane. Yep, the ones that they wore. Now Connor Bedard, Frank Nazar, Artem Levshunov, they'll be wearing the blacked out Blackhawks jerseys. Those will be absolutely sick. They'll be wearing them Friday night against Nashville at home at 7 p.m. For a full list of games that the Blackhawks are going to be wearing those jerseys, you can head to their social medias. They've posted a calendar. They are going to wear them on the road against Vegas. They do have one coming up against Vegas Tuesday, December 2nd, but I don't think it's that one. I think it's later on in the season. I believe it is the one where they play Vegas in March. Yeah, Saturday, March 14th, 3/14, Pi Day, will be the Blackhawks wearing their blacked out on the road against Vegas. That'll be cool to see. It should be probably like a color rush game. Both teams not in white, because we live in the era of color TV, so you don't have to do one team in light and one team in dark, but Blackhawks will mostly, of course, be wearing them at home, so that will be absolutely phenomenal to see. So that is the week for the Blackhawks. They do have a game Sunday at home against Anaheim. It's a 2:30. It's a matinee puck drop, or as Dalton Cooper likes to call it, a manatee game, and that'll be a nice return. We already had one return of Joel Quenneville this year to the United Center, but he'll be coming back one more time. And once again, a test for this Blackhawks team against an Anaheim team that is full of youth and life, just like this Blackhawks team. But they better bring some life in this next week. We can't be doing what we're doing here against Buffalo and Seattle. That is just not acceptable for any team that wants to say they want to win now and compete. You heard Frank Nazar and Connor Bedard on some of those broadcasts. They don't want to win in 3 years. They want to win now. They want to speed up this rebuild process. They want to start getting their their names out there more so than they already have. And you're not going to do that giving up 9 goals to the Buffalo Sabres. So a real test tomorrow against that Colorado Avalanche team, and we'll see how the Blackhawks fare going into this Thanksgiving week, because this is make or break. This is they're right on the bubble. You'd like to get into that playoff spot right around Thanksgiving so that second half of the season is a push for even more, or just to hold on to that playoff spot. That playoff hockey would be nice here on the Blackhawks side of things. It'd be early. We were talking a little bit earlier about how I think it's early for the Bears. I think it would be early for the Blackhawks. But am I ever going to complain about that? Absolutely not. You want things to go faster than normal, to be on a quicker pace than normal, so long as you keep your head straight, screwed on, and don't try to rush things. That's what I think some Chicago teams have done. We saw the Chicago White Sox try to rush things in 2020 and 2021 with some of the moves they made, thinking they were in win now mode. It's like you've barely touched the playoffs. Get there, start to build up, and then start making those trades with Nick Madrigal and moving managers and moving pitchers, and it just got rushed. So if you're the Blackhawks, don't rush it. If you're the Bears, don't rush it. And if you're the Bulls, man, nobody really saw this coming all that much with Chicago Bulls basketball, that they were going to start the season 5-0. We talked last week about how they slowed down just a little bit and were kind of back to 500. They're still sitting about there. 8-7, this Bulls team is. They're sitting third in the Central Division behind a red-hot Pistons team, 13-2. And then the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have been a little bit of a thorn in the Bulls' side thus far this year. They're sitting at 11-6, 3 games back. Chicago 8-7, 5 games back. And Milwaukee is only a half game back from the Bulls. They're 8-8. They've got one more game played, and they're sitting exactly at 500. The Pacers, man, without Halliburton, man, oh man, are they an embarrassment, basically. 2-14, 125 basketball is what they're playing. 11.5 games back. Basically, I mean, I know it's early in the season, but no hope for them to make the playoffs whatsoever. The only team worse than them in the Eastern Conference, the Washington Wizards, who are 1-14. 0-67 basketball is what they're playing. My goodness, that is terrible. They have yet to get a win at home. 0-6 in their home barn. 1-8 on the road for the Wizards. But getting back to this Bulls team, they're sitting in 9th in the Eastern Conference, so that's still a play-in round, but a little bit of a drop from where they were before with being in a full-on playoff spot. Would really love to see the Bulls be in something like that, but it's not going to happen when you're losing 143-107 to the Miami Heat like they did last night. That Miami Heat team, they're not doing all that great either. When you look at the standings, they're kind of always sitting right around where the Bulls are in those play-in round spots. They're a little bit higher than that right now. They're in 5th. They're kind of where the Bulls were 2 weeks ago. They're sitting at 10-6, though, 625 basketball. But I can still see this Heat being a play-in round team. But if you're giving up almost 150 to the Heat, that's not great. The Bulls did get a sneaky win against the Portland Trailblazers. That was one that they desperately needed to get, especially Portland. They're sitting at 6-9, so you want to beat up on those teams that are below 500 right now. That was a last-minute Nikola Vukovic 3 to give the Bulls the win. They were sitting at 121-119, and a 3 from Vooch gets the Bulls the win at the buzzer. Wow, what an exciting comeback win for the Bulls, which we've seen a couple of times, not only last season with that Josh Giddey showcasing against the Lakers, but even just this year alone. Vooch, 27 points, but it was Grant for Portland who had 33 points. Who led in rebounds, though? Also Nikola Vukovic. Donovan Clingan for the Portland Trailblazers, 21 rebounds, opposed to the Bulls leading with 8 with Vooch. Josh Giddey did lead in assists. He got that pass to Vooch for the buzzer beater. He had 13 assists. So It's been Giddey and Vooch all year long for this Bulls team. You had Kobe White and some of the Bulls players coming back last night, but it wasn't enough, as I said, as they lost to that Heat team 143-107. And they wore those blacked out Blackhawks jerseys walking into the stadium to support their fellow United Center hosts. And I don't know, maybe that didn't bring them luck because they got blown out just as badly as the Blackhawks did last night. The Bulls did get a win over a tough Denver I should say tough as in, they're 10-3. Tough Denver Nuggets team, a 130-127 win. So it's inconsistency for the Bulls, just as it is for pretty much every other Chicago team as it is right now. Despite winning records, you got to get the wins against teams that you're supposed to, in addition to the wins against teams that are tougher opponents. It's like the Bulls are playing up to their competition, but then down to their competition. They had a loss 150-147. You heard that right. 150-147 to the Utah Jazz in double overtime. That's the point increase right there, is because that game went to double overtime. Kobe White led this game in points with 27, but Lauri Markkanen, remember that name? Lauri Markkanen for the Utah Jazz, 47 points, almost drops 50 in this game, and that was really the difference maker. Just 3 points as Utah hits a 150 piece against the Bulls, and that was the difference in that one. Utah sitting at 5-8, so the Bulls really needed that one. That brought them to 500, and luckily the Bulls were able to climb back out of it. But they had gone on a 5-game losing streak right before they got those wins against the Nuggets and the Trailblazers, and right back into the loss column against the Heat. So they start off the season 5-0. You lose one, you win one. So you're 6-1. You lose 5 straight. You're right back to 500 at 6-6. And then you're barely keeping your head above water if you're this Chicago Bulls team. You got to pick up the pace here shortly. You've got Washington at home tonight. That should be a win. 7 p.m. tip-off on MNMT. And you've got a 1-14 Washington team coming into the United Center. This needs to be a win. When you look at this game, this should just be a regular season game. I'm trying to find the NBA Cup games in here, but they don't have them listed like that right now. Yes, this is just a regular season game. Going forward, though, the Bulls are on the road for quite a bit. They'll face the Pelicans on Monday at 7 p.m. Then they'll be on the road in Charlotte for Black Friday at 6:30 p.m. And then an easier matchup against the Pacers next Saturday after another edition of On the Rise. That is a 6:30 p.m. tip-off in Indianapolis. So should be a little bit easier of a week for this Bulls team. Charlotte currently sitting at 4-11. As I mentioned, the Pacers were at the bottom of the standings as well. The only tough team is going to be the Pelicans. And I say tough. They're 2-14, but they have a little bit of a star-studded roster when you look at some of their youth. So you never know what to expect in general from them. Zion Williamson is still there, Jordan Poole, so they could come out hot. Trey Alexander is there as well, but that should be another win. There's a bunch of teams that have already double-digit losses that the Bulls are going to be playing this week. You got to capitalize on as many of those as possible. If you are looking at the Windy City Bulls, let's take a look at G League side of things. They started here in November. We talked about their wins against the Wisconsin Herd to start the season. They were 2-0. They continued with a dominant 152-112 win against the Sioux Falls Skyforce at the Now Arena last Sunday. That was the game that Nick Johnston was telling us there would be a Matas Bazelis bobblehead giveaway. So, yeah, that was a cool one. And they got the win as well. Windy City goes on to get a 144-140 win at the Casey Center in Des Moines, Iowa against the Iowa Wolves. And then a 156-128 loss to the Wolves. So just as you thought they were chugging along there with those almost 150 pieces, then they do fall by a 150 piece to the Iowa Wolves. But still, hey, that's 4 straight wins to start the season. Their first loss coming at the hands of a tough Iowa Wolves team. So they split with them. They'll continue in action on Wednesday at home at the Now Arena. That'll be against the Sioux Falls Skyforce once again. And then that's a 7 p.m. tip-off. You can catch that on Chicago Sports Network Plus. And then it'll be a Friday night, Blackout Friday, 7 p.m. tip-off, Cleveland Charge, Windy City Bulls. That is at the Now Arena in Hoffman Estates. Looks like Cleveland redid their logo. So that'll be a little bit more of a retro logo there. There'll be a CHSN tape delay on that one. And then they'll play Cleveland again on Sunday at 2 p.m. That's Sunday, November 30th at 2 p.m. All 3 of these upcoming games during the holiday week are going to be at home at the Now Arena over in Hoffman Estates. You can check them all out on Chicago Sports Network Plus. So good things to see from this Bulls youth. Mac McClung has been going off for this Windy City Bulls roster, but we'll see if they need to make any kind of call-ups for the actual Bulls team because, I mean, listen, they've been doing great, or good, I should say, as they've dropped back down to 500, basically, but they had a hot start to the seasons that I don't think anybody predicted, so good to get ahead of the game a little bit. We'll see how that fares for the Bulls going forward. When we talk about the Bulls going forward, we talked about all those teams that have less than 5 wins. You got to get some wins here and get well back into that win column. Take advantage of an easy schedule during a holiday week before you go into December. And of course, Christmas is the NBA's holiday. So it's going to ramp up here in just a little bit before the new year, especially with Chicago Bulls basketball. Chicago Steel, we didn't really get to them much. We're still looking to get in there as far as WRMN goes, to go ahead and check out some games. We will be covering Roosevelt hockey here as well, one of your premier college hockey teams within the area. When you take a look at the Steel schedule, we were talking about their upcoming games last week. That was against the USA Hockey NTDP, National Team Development Program. They did lose on that Friday, a 5-2 loss. That was deja vu for them because Saturday was the same thing, a 5-2 loss to the USA Hockey NTDP. Both of those were in Plymouth, Michigan, so it'll be nice for the Steel to get a chance to come back home and play at home. They did have a game last night against the Sioux Falls Stampede back at home at Fox Valley Ice Arena. There are no updated scores both on the USHL website and also the Steel website. So I know this game happened last night. Not too sure what happened in this game. Let's see if we can get a little bit more information. But I'll tell you one thing. They will be playing that same Sioux Falls team tonight at 7:05 p.m. puck drop at Fox Valley Ice Arena before they have a little bit of a road trip next week. It'll be at Green Bay Wednesday night at 7:05, the Green Bay Gamblers. Then it'll be a Friday, Blackout Friday matchup against the Fargo Force at 7:05 in Fargo, North Dakota, followed by that same Fargo Force team on Saturday at 6:05. So a lot of hockey to be played here still in the USHL, just as the AHL and the NHL. Let's hope all of our teams get back into the groove. And even for our basketball teams as well, let's keep the Windy City Bulls winning games. And let's keep the Chicago Bulls above 500. Kind of a weird solo show for me today. We'll see if I can get my co-hosts back for next week. I know Nick Johnson had prior things, but then hope our buddy Dalton Cooper is feeling better. On the rise, AM 1410 WRMN.
We're no strangers to helping others.
It's what we were taught, trained, and told to do.
It could be for anything. Helping a friend move.
Listening to a fellow veteran for hours, at any hour of the day.